What's going on there, Twitch and YouTube world, and welcome to Holosightz TV. I'm excited to bring to you a fully updated variant of loadouts to help you win games here in March 2025. There's been a lot of changes in the background. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't take a little jab at my development team and just say, please start communicating some of these changes and enhancements in your patch notes. It would really help the community be more up to date on what to expect and allow even the lowest to the greatest player to experiment and just spice up the variety in some of their kits today. I hope to bring to you some refined examples of some of the things you had seen in my last video. I still think those loadouts will treat you just fine, but these ones will treat you well. More importantly, I think it is very, very, very important to stress to folks that there is no finite build. Just because you might see XYZ Merc player or XYZ Dogs player or XYZ Flaw player using a specific kit and loadout doesn't mean that is the meta. Whatever works for you, what will get you through, help you get the W. But for my folks who need a little bit more direction, here are some of the kits that we're going to be bringing to you today. First and foremost, y'all already knew this was going to be uno numero. And we're going to talk about the Tacoma and Kestrel combination. I'm still using the Kestrel, and a lot of people have asked if there's a big difference between using the Kestrel Templar or the original. And honestly, I use both, and I'll show you that as an example in my next loadout. But irregardless of what you like to use, let's talk about some of the things you really need to start paying attention to when it comes to variety, just the variety in your attachments, because the devs have made a lot of changes to different stats, different, I guess, negatives or setbacks with some of those stats that you need to pay attention for, not just some of the gains that you're going to be getting on your weapons, and not just paying attention down here to some of the things that you're seeing down below. I'm going to do my best along the entire video to kind of explain to you my thought process on why we're building these guns. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Kestrel. Kestrel is still going to be the top sniper in the game, and we're going to talk about the Piercer a little bit later on today, which is a great alternative. But this is going to be for our quick scopers, our on-the-fly openers. These are people who like to hit the sniper shot, switch to their SMG, and take the target down. And when we take a look at some of the stats here, for example, the Kestrel Light Stock, you're going to notice the stats here are going to talk about things like your movement speed, your horizontal recoil, and your reload time. But there's a major penalty for something like vertical recoil. Now, one of the things that we have to ask ourselves as players in the game, how often am I moving? Maybe you're walking forward, maybe you're sliding while trying to take a specific shot. Now, for somebody who has really good control over their aim in terms of vertical recoil, that's an area where a penalty is not going to be a major setback for 'em. If you feel like for some reason that you're experiencing a jerkiness in some of your shots, or things are kind of going side to side, things like sway or horizontal recoil are going to be things you want to start getting pluses on to correct some of that, disrupting your accuracy. So this particular loadout, you're going to notice that a lot of these particular add-ons here focus on sway and really just a faster ADS time. Now, for me personally, I use the 3X because if we take a look at that stat, I get 25% ADS time. Remember what I told you, quick scoping is going to really help you out. And you'll notice that I get something like the 12.5 vertical recoil to take back half of the penalty that the last attachment I just showed you had, contributed to the build itself. It's all about finding that fine balance, what works for you. We're going to kind of give you some thought process on the majority of these builds, but this video could be an hour long if I broke down every single percentage and what it's doing for me. So if you have some questions, drop it in the chat, and I'd be happy to go ahead and give you some details on what's going through my head. Now, without further ado, the Kestrel build is going to include the light stock, our 3x advanced combat scope, our lightweight barrel, which if you are interested in being able to shoot further distances, you could swap out to the heavy barrel. You'll notice you get a 10% fall off range. And if we take a look at the bar right here, we do get an increase in how far we're able to take those shots. But it does come with a significant ADS penalty. So that means this is going to be for folks who like to stay a little bit more stationary or take a high ground advantage and shoot from a safe place. But if you're somebody who likes to gun on the fly, not recommend the heavy barrel. And then last but not least, laser pointer. Now, in my prior video, one of the best attachments that was for virtually every single build, and I recommended it to you, was the flashlight. So if we quickly take a look at those stats, the flashlight used to originally help us with things like vertical and horizontal recoil, but the devs have adjusted these, and now a lot of them are going to focus on things like spread, sway, and some of the vertical recoil. But notice that there is a major penalty for the horizontal recoil. Now, in comparison to the laser pointer, more ADS time. I'm a quick scoper. Not to mention hip fire spread, and I do love to take those hip fire shots with my sniper rifle, especially when going for that thirst or finish on some of my targets. And I was able to kind of save myself a little bit more horizontal recoil in the process. And again, as I mentioned to you before, not really worried about that vertical recoil. This is a really great build. You're going to see some players like Veckenstein, a couple guys from Flaw have something very similar to this. You will see other folks willing to take the swap out for the 2.54x. I do personally think that the 2.54x is a superior scope, but I like to have a faster ADS time. However, big important thing for everybody to take away with them is the ADS walk speed. How many times do you find yourself taking shots while walking either side to side or walking towards target? This is something you need to take into consideration. Also, how often are you crouching whenever you're taking your shots? You know those gamers who like to crouch spam while they're busy going through an exchange with you? An attachment like this is going to drastically reduce their overall accuracy, 25%. You're going to have some stray bullets that look like they're on target. They're actually not. So that's really my last long-winded speech when it comes to the attachments. We're going to breeze the majority of the video to get you those builds in a quick fashion. You can freeze the frame, copy these builds, you'll get yourself some W's. Now, with that being said, I'd love to pair this with my Tacoma. I still think the Tacoma is the #1 SMG game. Biggest reason is the fire rate. This particular weapon is going to continue to produce really great performance for a lot of these players because, well, you need to kill your target as quick as possible. So right now, there are two variants of this build that I want to give you. The first is going to be the 1.3 reflex sight, the Tacoma drum mag, and this variant has the heavy grip, heavy barrel. Another one that I think you're going to enjoy, and it kind of mixes up the variety in your ADS time, is going to be swapping this to the light grip, getting rid of the heavy barrel, and instead going with probably the light barrel instead. You're going to notice that that ADS time is 25% along with the 5% movement speed. And when we think about a lot of the exchanges that we have with SMGs, you're usually moving while you're shooting. But notice this does end up taking away a little bit of that fall off range. And I often find that when I'm using this particular SMG, I'm in the middle of chasing somebody with Roadrunners. So that 10% fall off range for me personally is just too important to let go. But those are going to be your two variants. And to recap that, you can either go with the heavy or light barrel or the heavy or light grip. Either of these builds are going to treat you well. Personally, what works for me right now is going to be the heavy barrel and the heavy grip. I just feel like this particular version is hitting harder than the other one. The other one's more fast and reactive, a little bit better, middle of the chase. Next, we're going to talk about the Terracon Maniac, and make sure you pay close attention to this one because we did have some pretty big changes for this particular weapon. And I do have two different builds for you. Let me go ahead and pull up the old one from our last video just to make sure we can talk about that because it's still extremely viable. First is going to be the tried and true remix. 1.3 reflex sight is a game changer, and you're going to notice most of the builds are starting to use this because of the spread and walk accuracy. Walk accuracy is going to be one of those key stats, as well as your ADS walk speed and your ADS time. I honestly believe these three new stat areas are going to be the biggest game changers for your performance. Like I mentioned to you before, when it comes to something like the Tacoma in the last section, you're going to be on the move a lot of the times when you're shots. Make sure you're putting these kind of stats into consideration as you put guns together. For this build, we do run that 1.3, the Terracon drum mag, the Terracon laser pointer, and the stubby foregrip. Now, for the second variant of this particular build, let's go ahead and make a few changes. We'll swap the laser pointer for the flashlight, and then we will actually go ahead and put the tactical foregrip on here. And we're going to get rid of the 1.3 and put compressor. So this particular build is a little bit more of a laser beamy type build. So if you feel like you're still missing some of your shots, you're not quite hitting, those long range exchanges, you'll notice that this one just is a little bit easier to control, a little bit more accurate than our last example. But as I mentioned to you before, the game has been changing a lot. I'm on the move. If any of you watch my games or watch some of the players who are either around my skill level or far beyond it, they're usually shooting on the go. So this is a great plan B, and this is the build from our last loadout video, but the newest or updated, refreshed version is going to go ahead and swap things out, right? What we're going to do is put the 1.3 on there. We're going to switch our tactical to the laser pointer, and we're going to get rid of the foregrip for something better. So I'm going to quickly just put that back the original example for you. And ladies and gents, this, in my opinion, is the meta Terracon Maniac for you to take away with you on your adventures. Have some fun with it. Take it for a spin. Enjoy the next weapon is going to be the Kestrel from before. Not a lot of changes here, so we're going to quickly breeze past this video, but I do want to stress to folks, remember the variance and some of the stats you get from each of the attachments. Next is going to be one of my favorite loadouts, and it is the Influencer. Now, I've done a lot of testing in the firing range, and there is a big debate, and it's, do you run this with all things heavy or all things light? Now, for me personally, I have been experimenting with the following build. The Influencer light stock with the new 1.3 reflex meta, the lightweight barrel, and the stubby foregrip. These examples I'm giving you today are all going to show you higher accuracy, higher mobility, and just better handling as a whole. Now, the original build I used to suggest to people was, of course, the heavy stock with the heavy grip and the heavy barrel, which you swap out for the sight. I still think that this is a very excellent version of the influencer to use. You'll notice we lose a lot of the perks that gave us the mobility and handling, but the accuracy as well as the recoil control go way, way up. But there's some really big drawbacks. If we were to take a look at this, for example, we lose a 5% deduction in movement speed off the heavy barrel, the reload times extended, and if we look at the heavy grip, we lose a little bit of recoil, and if we looked at the heavy barrel, we lose ADS time. And honestly, with a weapon like this, there are going to be moments where you may find yourself wanting to ADS. So I have personally switched this out. And again, I'm now running the lightweight barrel, the light stock, and the light grip gets removed for the 1.3 reflex. And the reason why I do this, again, really plays into this walk accuracy. A lot of times when I'm taking this exchange, I want to be able to move and aim at my target. And I find that usually you're chasing your opponent while using the influence. Now, if you're asking why I might want to have a faster ADS time, again, this is for those people who start to just barely get out of your reach and be able to fire at your opponent. Being quick and reactive helps, but most importantly, I'd like to take shots while we're flying in the air. The faster I could do that, the better results, me personally, I have experienced. I do lose a little bit of fall off range, but it's not enough to make me want to switch things back to the heavy. And again, light stock, 1.3, lightweight barrel, and the stubby foregrip going to be my new recommendation. A lot of variants and different builds you're going to see out there. So make sure you're checking them out and find what works for you. Next is a pre-built that came with one of our battle passes from a couple months ago. And I'm going to talk about why this is a really great weapon for you to use later on in the video. But this entire kit in particular is meant to be a close range, just in the mix of all the action and actually firing from the hip as frequently as possible. So that's another reason why I took off the heavy barrel, because I'm doing a lot more hip firing with things like the influencer and the kite liberator. So this one, again, real great build. It's a pre-built. You just need to own it. You can go ahead and buy it off the marketplace if you do not have it. Just remember, one of the major drawbacks to this particular pre-build is it does not have a large magazine. It does a tremendous amount of damage. See here, it is crafted for rapid fire social justice. It doesn't just shoot, it cancels. Despite recoil pulling hard left, its aiming, speed, and deadly headshots just defeat your enemies. So it's really important to think about what your play style is. And for this, again, being a hip fire oriented build while aiming for the head, I like to use it a lot. And I'm pairing it with a Ripper setup because oftentimes you want to be able to immediately follow up from somebody who just potentially lost a limb. And both of these weapons will. I'll talk about my setups here in just a couple moments in more detail when we get to the section of it. Next is going to be a couple fan favorites, and I think it's time to give these guys some shine. I've also spent a little bit more of my money to get some more of the attachments for you. So let's talk about the Kochi. So right now, the Kochi, I am running the heavy barrel, the tactical flash hider, the compact laser, and the drum mag. And there are several major drawbacks for some of the attachments that I'm using, such as ADS time and walk speed. But I think this gun, just being a heavy hitter, makes it extremely viable to just, I guess, have some of those penalties, because my focus here is fastest kill time possible versus fastest aim time or movement time while using. So, really great gun. Take it for a spin. Am I using it as my full-time SMG? No, but I do like to pick this up, and there's a lot of people out there wondering what kind of builds you can put together for this weapon. I do think maybe swapping out the laser pointer from something like maybe a stubby foregrip, or getting rid of the flash hider for maybe a light stock is always worth it. Just because if you're a little bit more mobile of an SMG player, you're going to want those benefits of ADS walk time as well as, of course, the overall move. Next, we'll talk about the Hawk, fan favorite by a lot of folks there on the sticks, and this is the one that I'm currently going to folks. Now, there are, I guess you could say, two variants of this particular build that are really popular right now, and it really just comes down to you maybe adding another light attachment of your bring this particular life. Perhaps the lightweight barrel, because you do get that increased ADS time and the ADS movement speed, which makes this a really nice, snappy light machine gun. But I feel like for the most part, I get more value out of something like the silencer, which is going to have that movement speed while I'm ADSing. Because for some reason, I'm always strafing side to side when using this particular weapon. And I think just as a PC player, it's a habit that's ingrained into my playstyle. So if you were to get rid of that, get rid of this, add the lightweight barrel, and I think you're going to get some really good results. But for me, again, I like to go ahead and swap that out for movement speed. Now, the light grip, stubby foregrip are going to continue to complement the 1.3x setup. I do think this is probably one of the best guns in the game right now. It's still a little bit too slow. It doesn't matter what variant or variety of attachment you throw on this thing. It's a little bit sluggish when going against something like an AR or the top meta SMGs. So the choice is yours. But either of those examples are going to do well, help get you. All right, next, but certainly not last, is going to be the Flenser and the AZ. You're going to notice that this particular meta has a lot more weapon variety in terms of what is going to actually be kills. So let's talk about the Flenser. The influencer seems to be taking all the spotlight right now. However, with a lot of these neat little changes to the game, now you could be more mobile, more snappy with your shotgun, and that is going to turn you into a deadly assassin. I'm currently running the Flenser Light Stock, the 1.3x Reflex Sight, the lightweight barrel, and the laser point. Now, if you do want to mix this up, I do recommend trying to continue to reduce some of the recoil if that's something that's affecting you. But just remember, things like reload time and movement speed usually are going to be the consequence or trade off. For example, ADS time or ADS movement speed are a huge penalty if we were to go to my old builds that use the heavy barrel. So, just again, I want to give you all some insights into why these weapons are being built the way built, tailoring it to my specific playstyle. Make sure you're keeping that in mind throughout the entirety of this video. When it comes to the AZV, I do think that the Battle Pass variant, which is the Doom Zero, is slightly superior. The major drawback is you don't get to use one of the stocks. However, again, we're going to continue to use that new formula that we've been talking about into the equation. 1.3 reflex there. I just think right now it's like the light stock was older metas. It's too valuable to let go. The flashlight is a big debate here because you'll notice that I get a fast, rapid ADS time, really great horizontal recoil control with a slight penalty to vertical. But you'll notice as the gun kind of shakes side to side from each burst shot, that taming the horizontal recoil seems to have a higher value than taming the vertical. Now let's quickly compare the flashlight that I'm personally using, and it gives you way percentage, which also will help you out with that side to side, especially when you're doing a lot of jumping and mobility, and the bullet spread. When you're starting to shoot those burst shots, you want to have them as centered and tight as possible. So if there was any change that I might make to this particular build, it could be swapping out the compact flashlight for the laser pointer, but I do think that the angled foregrip and the silencer are still really good options. Again, when we think about the silencer, we're going for that ADS movement speed, or when we think about the foregrip, we're going again for more ADS movement speed, but faster, more reactive capability weapon. That's where we're coming from in terms of the stats and thought process on this. And when we take a look at the information, it says it's a real nightmare for your enemies. This setup boasts an even higher RPM and accuracy than setups. So basically, what this is saying to you is that you are going to shoot faster and be more accurate, which is the reason why I didn't put as many accuracy attachments on the weapon. Already given that being just one of the holiday or battle pass related weapons in the game. If you don't have this, remember you can always buy it off the marketplace. They're not too expensive. And it's not really a popular gun quite yet. There are players who take advantage of it, but it's not like a primary staple in the meta currently. Moving forward, let's talk a little bit about the Piercer because this is going to be a fan favorite for a lot of people. There is one adjustment I will show you to make in this example, and shout out to my boy Mr. Maz from Team Merciless who helped put this together. I want to make sure I'm always giving credit to whoever may have brought the life or idea to some of the builds I present to you in my videos. Just know they're not always me who come up and cook them up. The other players I like to spend a lot of time talking to in the community to get their insights. And I would argue right now, Mister's probably the best piercer player game. So the 4X is kind of automatic unless you're one of those weirdos who like to shoot long distance ranges. You'll notice that the smart scope is an 8X, the default is an 8X, and the 8 to 12, of course, 8 to 12, but comes with some pretty intense penalties. Now, the 4X does come with some major ADS time penalties, but we're going to show you how to offset that with some of the other attachments. And I think it's just the most balanced scope for this particular sniper rifle. If we were to take the lightweight barrel, this is where we get back all of the ADS that we lost in some of the penalties, ADS movement speed. You'll also see that the laser pointer is probably the better attachment in terms of tacticals, but it's not the cheapest at the moment. You might want to wait until the price drops down a little bit. And the flashlight isn't awful. There's no drastic penalty. I don't really think that there's a lot of horizontal recoil with the gun in general. So you could do this in the meantime, but I also pair this with the angled foregrip for the, because you'll notice continuing to stack that ADS time and that ADS movement is going to be vital for this particular weapon. Now remember, with this sniper rifle, you are going to want to hold down the trigger before you release your shot. So it's all going to come down to you holding it down, charging it, ADS, and then landing the shot on your particular target. The faster and more reactive you can stay with this particular sniper rifle, the more consistency you have. Side note, make sure you guys jump on Twitch sometime. Check out my boy Mr. Mavs, and I really think he's going to be the best player template for you to learn from on how to properly use this monster. And again, the only thing you're going to see different from his build from mine is the laser pointer, and I'm broke. So that's just me having affordability. We're almost wrapped up with it in the weapon meta. So let's quickly take a look. Anything else? And the M4. M4 is going to be the last thing on our list today, and I think with a lot of the big changes in the meta, this is what I have decided to up. This is going to focus again an on-the-move shooter. So I'm using the Commodore Heavy Barrel, the Commodore Drum Mag, and the angled foregrip with the silencer. Now, you may have been wondering why I didn't go with the stock. A lot of players are either going stock or pistol grip, but I, again, want to stress to you the importance of something like ADS movement speed. And there are a lot of times where I find myself either sliding or running, trying to get those follow up shots. People are grapple hooking away or slam fisting away. These kind of attachments really help you continue to be accurate. When you look at a player, for example, maybe what a week, he spends a lot of time in air shooting at his targets. So when you're able to get high and above your target, it's going to be very important for you to have something that keeps way, ADS speed or ADS movement speed. All of these factors for you need stabilized your play style. I think this is what's been key, and I think it's And that's all we got there when it comes to our weapon setups for loadouts to win games. Again, right now, my top favorites right now continue to be the Kestrel Tacoma. I do like to run the Terracon Maniac with the Kestrel, and I would say the Influencer with any other weapon that I just told you. Great option right now. I like to swap the Kite Liberator out a lot of times and put the Maniac, and I do enjoy using the Hawk with some variant of meta SMG. I've been using the Piercer setup with either the Maniac or the Tacoma. It's whatever your playstyle. Again, we got to stop going for that cookie cutter Call of Duty. Everybody uses XYZ weapon setups. It's very important to tailor the you. Let's talk about limbs because, man, this is a great time in the limb meta. Slash sarcasm. In my last video, I celebrated, I praised, I bowed down to the E-gods and said thank you, Off the Grid development team, because Ripper was neutralized, and we started to see a lot more variety in the limbs. Well, last week, magically, and it wasn't really called out in the patch notes, Ripper is back, ladies and gentlemen. And it is S-. Remember in my last video, I said it was A tier. It could be A+. The devs have immediately pushed this back into S tier limb range, which has made the game very frustrating to play. And I don't want to hurt or bruise any of the newer players' fragile egos. They put this limb back in the game for you all because it's one of the few things that have been helping people finally get their first double-digit game of kills. You're like, oh my god, I got 10, 11, 13 kills. And it's probably because you're slashing everybody's face off. And there's a weird bug in the game right now where 1 out of 3 Ripper uses slashes somebody legs off. And as someone being on the other side of that, it is infuriating. I'm really disappointed in you, dev team. You got to do better, and you got to stop holding hands for these players and let them learn how to seek more variety in their playstyle. Stop just picking whatever's the most broken thing in the game. But I do thank you for nerfing those trip mines. Much appreciated. If we take a look, my personal favorite right now is going to be some variant of Paralyzer with a damage limb. I am running the Paralyzer Ripper combination. For $300 difference, you could choose to go either white or purple Roadrunners. And in my last video, I did call out how, due to that current meta existing surrounding Ripper and Trip Mines, that the Limb Accelerator was the #1 backpack. And that is no longer the case. I personally believe that Soldier Backpack is right back neck and neck with the Limb Accelerator. And again, it'll come down to your playstyles. If you're running double Paralyzer, something like the Limb Accelerator, in my opinion, is going to come in handy for you. If you're running really double any limb, the Limb Accelerator is going to come in handy for you. I do like the Soldier Backpack. Time and time again, I find myself getting into a shooting exchange with somebody and running dry. And nothing kills you more than a gun that's not reloaded. So make sure you decide what works best for you when it comes to the backpack. Like I said, they're neck and neck right now. There isn't necessarily one better than the other. But to recap, this loadout, Paralyzer, Roadrunners, Ripper, fan favorite, love it. My next loadout is probably my most used when I'm not running Paralyzer, and it is going to be Hookshot, Roadrunner, and Recon Drone. Remember what I told you all before, you need to have a data limb. So if you're not running Paralyzer, you need to be running Recon, and I tend to do this whenever I'm vibing with my pre-made squads because someone needs to give the team data. If I'm feeling a little bit greedy or I'm solo queued by myself, I'm going to stick to using the Paralyzer, but when it comes to just, sharing the W, getting to the target as quickly as possible, swarming in those 3 stacks, make sure you all are triple stacking. Stop spreading around the map and ditching your teammates because that is what's losing you more games. Hookshot for the mobility, Roadrunners because they treat you well, Recon for the data, and again, the Soldier Backpack, what's currently working for me. The next limb setup, and I hate to show this to everybody, but hey, I can't be selfish. Just because I hate something doesn't mean I want to share what is truly going to help you be more successful playing off the grid. And it is going to be the Double Ripper. The devs decided to make this limb great again. I have no idea why, but use it or lose it. It's up to you. I don't need to really say anything more about this. It's broken for a reason. And every game you're playing today, I'm sure you're going to hear nothing but shing, 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 shing. So if you can't beat them, join them. The next setup is going to be Hookshot, Recon Drone. We've already done that. Recon Drone and Slam Fist. So again, always have at least one data limb, and then you need to choose, do you want to have a damage limb or a mobility limb? So I personally like to pair this, especially just being a little bit more close ranged. Loadout kit. I'm using the Slam Fist for those really fast, rapid, just get out of jail free cards. Make sure you check out my beginner guides video if you're curious what this looks like or how to use this. But this is just, again, one of my fan favorites right now. It's what works for me. So Recon, Roadrunners, Slam Fist, and the Soldier Backpack. Remember how I told you before, I was really leaning in that limb accelerator direction, right? And now we're really leaning back into that Soldier Backpack direction. I'm sure a lot of the other more experienced players are doing the same right. On to the Foss stuff, and actually, is it in the Piercer setup? We'll talk about that here at the end. But double paralyzer is absolutely huge right now. If everyone's going to be running around the map trying to act like Jason Voorhees, you need to be able to shut that down. So double ripper is countered by double paralyzer. And I did see a question there on Reddit by one of the newcomers who was saying, how do I paralyze or stun my target? And the answer is you need to hit them with the dart. So when you very first hit Q, remember that this is going to pulsate, show other targets, and get you out of the recon. But the dart that you shoot before the cooldown activates will stun a player if used in a direct hit manner. What I recommend for most players is as you're swooping down and you're about to land on a target, or you see somebody running, right? Try and pre-fire that dart to where you think they're going to be headed to. And you're going to see a lot more stuns happening. Maybe they're getting ready to come up a rope. You can time it, hit them at the top of the rope, get that stun, and it's almost a free kill every single time if you can land that direct hit. But double paralyzer, Roadrunners, any backpack of your choice. I personally would run Limb Accelerator here because I like to, keep that uptime in the data that I'm trying to get from these limbs. And that about wraps it up. There's one last loadout example, and it is going to be the Phosphor Fury Bounce Bomber combination. If you're wondering why, the Bounce Bomber is still in a decent A tier spot, and you can pair it with an S tier limb. This is a completely offensive setup. You can't throw trip mines on your opponent anymore, but what you can do is if you still release the Phosphor Fury with like 0% charge, it'll still ploop out in front of you a good 5 to 10 yards, or feet, excuse me, right? 5 to 10 feet in front of you, you could still just bloop, shoot the Phosphor Fury out. So if you get a really good pull in from your bounce bombers on your target, you can follow up with your Phosphor Fury. If you want to know what that looks like, again, make sure you all are checking out my beginner guide video that I dropped last week, and it will help bring that to life for you. But I still think this is a really good build, and I still think Phosphor Fury is one of the top loadouts in the game. Something I do recommend for folks to consider is maybe pairing leapers with something like this. If you're going to be spending a lot of time in the air, trying to break shields to do damage on people, getting up and over the head of your opponent. And I like to pair this with the M4 and get my what a week on. One of the things that I think you can learn from a player like him, because he's probably one of our top accuracy players in the community, is let's say my phone here is my target, right? What a lot of people are doing, right? Let's just say this computer mouse here is me, right? What a lot of you are doing is this. What a week is doing is this, right? He's able to constantly position himself up and over the target. So as they're flying underneath or below him, he can just beam down on them with absolute accuracy. And it's a lot easier to aim that way than it is straight ahead in front of you while someone's doing all of this in the air. So just take that with you as some food for thought when, really chasing down your targets. But I think Phosphor Fairy is going to be a great option there for you. One more, and it is the, I guess we already covered the double paralyzer, hookshot kinetic shield. So I've been using this as kind of like my end game cheeser, and it's just a really great distraction loadout. If I'm sitting on a ton of money, you can't really spend it like you used to because the devs thought it was a genius idea to let buybacks just kind of be randomized. And what I mean by that is you might see the game end on round 5, you might see the game end on round 8 or round 9. And my theory is there's a limited amount of buybacks per zone. So if everybody is buying back their teams over and over and over, you will actually not be able to move past round 5. If nobody's buying anybody back, you might see it push as late as round 8 or round 9. I have not seen it go any later than round 10 in the current setup. I'm not a fan of it. I think the devs were kind of wild for doing this, and the intention behind it was to stop people farming lobbies. And it's not going to work. So more power to you, dev team. Anyways, let's talk about why this particular setup is good. The Influencer Shotgun is one of the dirtiest long-range shotties as well as close-range shotties, but you can pair it with something like the Kinetic Shield. In my beginner guide video, I talked about how a lot of times you can take damage, absorb, burst, swap, shoot the shotgun, right? It's a boom, boom combination. And a lot of times you find yourself needing to run or reposition. This is for those moments where you're stuck in a really shitty, maybe 2v1, 3v1, or who knows, maybe it's not shitty and you're in a one-on-one situation and you want to create some form of an advantage. And I think a lot of folks right now are sleeping on the kinetic shield, and the best thing to do right now is pair that with a strong one-hit wonder. The Flenser is also going to be a great swap out alternative for this, and the hook shot is just meant to allow you to continuously reposition as much as humanly possible. So just some food for thought on playstyle for this particular limb setup. But that's all I got for you today. This one was a little bit different than the last couple videos, and I apologize for that, but I don't at the same time because the devs have made so many changes, and I think it's a good thing. It's no longer about these staple builds that you can cookie cutter every other person in the community. Everybody is kicking a new flavor right now. I do want to give a couple recommendations for folks to spend time checking out. And weirdly enough, they're all from the same organization. Much as everyone wants to give them shit, my team included, they tend to give back to a lot of people. So if you're looking for something different or refreshing than what I've given to you in this video, check out Team Merciless. People like Veckenstein have been kind enough to share some of the builds and thoughts going through their mind. Mr. Mavs has been kind enough to share some of his builds and thoughts going through his mind. My boy Triggerman TV has been putting out some videos there on Reddit. So if you want to see some other ideas and more examples that are a little different than mine, go check out his videos there on Reddit. And of course, I actually haven't watched him in a while, but our boy Public Sorrow. Public helped me with a lot of like my M4 builds or SMG builds when I very first started the game. So those are just some examples of people that you can check out. I'm sure there's several other players in the community, but I think it's important we focus on those who are trying to give back rather than just pub stomping lobbies with their triple stack sweat team. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned as we will have another video here in the next week or two, which will be part 2 beginner's guide, showing you everything I did in part 1, but live and in the game. Till next time, folks. Peace, love, and happiness. It'll be easy.